Right, well, welcome everybody to the second of our Greener Footprints Sandwich Session series. My name's Rosie. I'm in the Sustainability and Climate Change team at Herefordshire Council, working closely on the Greener Footprints initiative. You've probably had me in your inbox on a couple of occasions. We've built this webinar series to deliver short and informative webinars on sustainability topics, particularly focused at businesses in Herefordshire, but open to everybody. And we're also very open to suggestions for any topics. Tina, would you mind moving on to the next slide, please? Thank you. If you do have any topics you'd like to suggest, you can get in touch and let us know at the climate@herefordshire email address on the screen. And if you've missed any previous sessions, then we'll be recording them, and all the recordings will be live on the website at the address shown there. That link will be live, as I say, in the shared slides. But yeah, the previous session was on EV infrastructure in Herefordshire. So if you missed that, you can catch up via that link. Thank you, Tina. If you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So today we will be covering some local examples and practical actions that you can take within your business to support nature. We'll be looking at some of the considerations in getting larger projects off the ground and signpointing to resources that you can use, free resources, to help you do that work. But first, we'll be hearing from Jamie Audsley, CEO of Herefordshire Wildlife Trust. Next slide, please, Tina, and we'll hand over to you, Jamie. Thank you.
That's great. Well, hello, big welcome. Thanks for joining, and great to be here talking about nature. We'll keep it moving. I'm Jamie, our Chief Executive, and Herefordshire Wildlife Trust, one of the larger membership organisations in the county. But what do? We're recovering nature, and we're supporting people to take action to do that too. We've got lots of nature reserves, lots of people getting connected, taking action, and recovering nature at scale is really our focus. I'll keep us moving in terms of our pace. And my job, if I move to our next slide, is really just to set the scene and say we've got lots of corporate members, lots of employers working with us and supporting on nature. Great to have others on the call. But that just sets the scene in terms of some of the people we're supporting. And yeah, I'll keep us moving to say that let's forget nature for a second and just to remind ourselves why this is so important. There's been a report out today from the Green Finance Institute. You may have heard of them. But it says that nature loss is as significant an economic risk as climate change. And in the coming years, potentially 12% of global GDP will be affected by nature loss. So it's the economy stupid. Whether you care or don't care about nature, which I hope you do, it's going to have a big impact on our businesses and our economy. Tina, I'll keep us moving. Thank you so much. Why is it so important? We're in Herefordshire, 80% of our land is indeed agricultural, and the key drivers of nature loss from across the UK and globally, but boiling them down to pick three: intensive agriculture, infrastructure and building development, and climate change. So that's loss of habitat, that's use of chemicals, and really having a negative impact upon nature. Likewise, we'll move on. So yeah, why so important? From a business perspective, it is huge value to all our businesses. Ultimately, are underpinned by nature in some way. We'll talk a bit about that. At least this is the World Economic Forum. 6 of the top 10 business risks are climate and nature related, and increasingly, customers, employees, the public are expecting action, as we all know. But that's just to ground us. Why do we need to think about this? We'll move on. Thank you. And to set the big picture, this is a slide that communicates where are we at, what's been happening. Conservationists, nature charities are using this language, a nature positive future, a bit like net zero for climate. By kind of 2050 and onwards, we're aiming to return to 1970s level of nature as our big goal, if we're aiming to cover it effectively. So yeah, that's just in our minds and can help us think about it's going to be a big thing that we all need to contribute to. Tina, likewise, we'll move on. Thank you so much. So look, we all have frameworks and ways of working, but if we're going to think about taking action for nature as our business, in our workplaces, then avoiding damage, reducing our impact, bringing nature back with restoring and regenerating it, but ultimately getting to a point where our business model and our business operations are in balance with nature and not degrading it without putting it back would be a key point. And we'll move to some of the more specifics with our next slide. Yeah, this is just a bit an image from Business for Nature. It's a global corporate alliance of companies taking action. But like you think about climate change, and climate change, probably businesses have done more around assessing where we're at. And that can be more complicated than carbon, obviously, for nature. How do we measure nature? Where is it? What's impact? It's a bit more nebulous than carbon and something perhaps more tangible we can put a box around. We can talk a bit about that. Taking some commitment, making some commitments, advocating, acting, forgive me, and then advocating likewise, using our appropriately business power to influence decision makers and policy key too. We'll keep going. So zooming in more towards Herefordshire, if we want to do well for nature, we want to make sure ourselves as a business, an employer, a workplace are doing good by nature. Some key questions I'd pose to ourselves. If we think about land, how are we managing our own land? Number one, obviously some of our employers are going to have land as a key part of their business operations, be that house builders or farmers, of course. But there are going to be many employers that have land as part of their work. We can explore that. But if not, you may have some scrubby space or a workplace garden, or be connected to space, of course, outside. So influencing the land to support habitats, to recover them, a key first point. Then our supply chain, and this is going to vary obviously from business to business and employer to employer, be as a publishing company on the call in terms of some of our key products, or indeed, if we're working in more financial services, how are we thinking about our financial investments and their impact? But that's going to vary, but a key point we can explore. And then the action one I'll come to, depending on our businesses as we make progress. So some key questions we have in our mind. Some nice slurpy soup in the background, wonderful, and we'll make some progress, Tina. Thank you so much. So if you're lucky enough to own or manage land, what do we start to do? Well, look, we could support you, but you could start to take stock with a biodiversity survey, assessing the habitat as it is, what's currently there, what's working well for nature, in effect, taking stock. Now, you can do that if you're not an ecologist. Don't worry, you don't need to be just mapping what's there, identifying your key habitats. Is it grassland? Is it meadow? Is it woodland? Is it scrub? Just getting a rough sense of what's in front of you. From that, we can make a bit of a plan to introduce different tree species, or be looking after that grass differently. That might be no mow may, or the use of chemicals, or how we're maintaining it. But we then want to think about the practical use of that land, and we'll hear some examples, I think, from Orphans as one of our case studies of how you, even with a small bit of land, has started to take real action. And if we're businesses in an urban area, then increasingly, you may have seen in recent weeks, sadly, our national parks, where we think all the nature should be, actually have a lower level of nature in some instances than our urban areas. So the combination of all our urban spaces, wild and wonderful gardens, being connected up is really important too. So we've assessed the situation, we've made a bit of a plan, and we can talk about that as we progress in the webinar. We then want to think about connecting up. Can that get connected to other areas? For nature to recover, we want bigger, bolder, more connected green spaces so that nature can move and be supported. And yes, let's make progress. Thanks, Tina. So thinking about our supply chain, I'm going to stay pretty high level here, but here's a slide. This is produced by WWF, so no claim on it from the Wildlife Trust, but it just helps you think about your supply chain, land impact if you're going to be mining materials or getting raw primary products. Deforestation is a key one for a food retailer or a fast-moving good or beverage company. Hospitality, where is our supply chain coming from? Key questions, one, for example, around palm oil, and obviously being deforestation free. The destruction of primary rainforest can't be undone with offsetting or improvements. So making sure you check and work as hard as you can on your supply chain. Lastly, people making many progress, obviously, with the use of water and indeed the product and development of packaging and recycling. But yeah, that's the kind of headline approach. Detail does need to be thought through, but helps us start to take stock and just asking sensible questions and challenging those that are supplying you. Where are things from? What do you think its impact is on nature? Show us the evidence about how you're making sure nature isn't damaged or indeed even is being recovered. Let's keep us going. And I know time is upon us, almost at 10 past. So we thought about our own land, if we're lucky enough to have it. We thought about our supply chain, then influencing. This is going to vary company by company, but I guess I'm going to make a pitch today for thinking about the River Wye, the biggest ecological problem we face in Herefordshire. So look, whatever your view on it, be you a conservationist, a farmer, a landowner, my challenge to employers is that I don't really think we hear much from employers in the broader economy about this issue. Tourism, the sense of identity in Herefordshire, and we just need to keep up that echo chamber of asking for a real plan and demanding real action. We've warmly welcomed some of the positive steps taken in the last week, but that plan needs to be far more specific and tangible, cross-border. Making sure that it aligns with the kind of scientific recommendations to manage manure properly, and indeed collaborating with Wales. I think that in many instances, politicians and decision makers will listen more to the calls from businesses and employers than they might in the traditional nature sector. So don't be shy there. So that gives us a bit of an overview, and I think let's move us on, Tina. That's just an introduction from Herefordshire Wildlife to set the scene. If we can be helpful, happy for questions or indeed get into the detail with your work. But look, over to Katie. It's a pleasure to have orphans as a corporate member of ours, but I'll say no more and pause there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
Oh, sorry, interrupting
no,
you.
that's all good. No, thank you so much, Jamie, for that. It was it's really good to hear from you, and also to just have that encouragement for organisations that might not have that green space to feel empowered that they can actually still take action. Katie, we're now going to hear from Katie Shearer, who's the Sustainability Director at Orphans Press, a local printing and publishing firm in Herefordshire. So over to you, Katie. Thank you.
Hiya. So, as you say, my name's Katie. I primarily work in the print marketing side of Orphans Press, but I'm also the sustainability lead. Do you want to go to the first slide, Tina? And the next one, yeah, brilliant. So we have been here for 150 years. We started as a print works, so primarily printing little tracts and books, and since then we've grown into a multi-level agency, really. So we span across marketing, web, design, publishing, and of course we still do a lot of print. In terms of our space, we moved to our current home, which was a purpose-built factory and office space. And as you can see from the photos, we haven't got masses and masses of land, but we do have a lovely green border. And as you can see, it's still growing. Every year we're doing more and more to encourage wildlife. So the first photograph, 2009, you can see we have a few trees dotted around, and this photo from 2024, this was taken last week, I think. So you can see we've got beautiful blossom, big trees, and some solar panels as well, which was that second phase was completed at the beginning of this year. So we're very proud of that. I think a key for us, being in the countryside, but also being on an enterprise park, is really setting a standard for our neighbours. So we're really lucky to have a few neighbours who have got beautiful hedging and are encouraging wildlife in their own right. But we want to make sure that we're saying, you know, this is the space that we have, this is what we can do, this is what we've achieved. And I'm especially proud because much of the kind of things that we've been doing have actually been led by the team. So we're very lucky to have a team of people who are passionate about all environmental issues at all levels. So some people take the responsibility for the recycling, reducing waste, the planting and the gardening. So it's very much a collaborative effort at Orphans. If you want to go to the next slide. So here, I just thought I'd pull out a few examples of this. I say small, a few things that we've been doing year on year to really encourage wildlife in the area. So the first thing that we do is we we plant native trees every year. We're a smallish company, so we haven't got masses and masses of resources, but we always make sure that we do what we can. So in this photograph, you can see Alan, who's a printer. He's been with us since the 70s, actually. He's really keen on gardening. So he is the first person to say, I want to go out with a spade and put some trees in the ground. So I think he's planting an apple tree there, but we've got plums, we've got birch, we've got all sorts. And we do tend to try, every year we try to plant something edible as well. So the idea being that in the future, the staff can really enjoy the space and get something from it as well. We also planted some hedging this year as well. So we had a local gardener that came in, I think it's 60 native trees that he's planted all around the sort of the back border at Orphans. And obviously that's going to be a really exciting new way to encourage wildlife and diversity and really be doing something in an area that's, I mean, we are rural, but we are also in Leinster, so we are semi-urban, so we want to make sure that we're doing all we can for the wildlife in the area. I mentioned a little bit earlier that many of the projects have been, supported by the team. So I'm really proud of this bird table, actually, because it was built, installed, all the upkeep and everything actually just by the printers. They brought it in one day and said, we really want to encourage birds, so here's a bird table. And they actually do love a bit of bird watching. And Jamie, I think we've been in discussion with the Herefordshire Wildlife Trust about doing a little mini wildlife survey. So they're going to write down what they see, and we'll let Josie know what they find in the area as well. So that's an exciting one too. I thought I'd just prove that it is a team effort, because that's actually me planting some lavender last year in the ground. So my latest project is creating a butterfly friendly garden. I would love to turn the entirety of Orphans into a beautiful wildflower meadow, but I'm being allowed a patch, which is great. So I'm hoping that we're going to see a lot more, butterflies and wildlife in the area as well. If you want to go to the next slide, I'll just show you. So this area where we're sitting having a meeting is actually right next to where the wildflower meadow is going to be. So we're hoping that, as well as, improving access for wildlife, we're also creating a lovely space for our employees. So, helping with the well-being by having a beautiful, colourful, nature-rich space where people can go outside, have meetings with clients if the weather hopefully turns soon, and have our lunch there. So yes, that's just a flavour of what we've been doing at Orphans. But I think the key is that there's always something more that we can be doing. So we've kind of made these achievements, and now we're looking forward to what we're going to do next. So now we've planted all of our plants and all of our trees, we need a way to water them. So we're hoping to capture water with a water butt, but I'm sure, as many of you know, it's not always as straightforward as you think it's going to be. And apparently our purpose-built factory has funny sized drainage pipes, which aren't easy to get a water butt to fit. So that's the next obstacle, getting that set up. As I say, we're going to be creating a beautiful, colourful area. And I have also decided I would quite like a wildlife pond as well. We haven't got any concrete ideas just yet. It's just an idea. So if any of you have experience of building a mini wildlife pond, please do let me know, because I would love to hear about it. And I think also it's worth saying, if you are interested in coming to Orphans and seeing what we do and the changes that we've made here, then I would love to show you around. So please do send me a message and come and see us.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was brilliant, and actually some really excellent examples of things that can be done that both benefit wildlife but also benefit staff well-being as well. And you obviously as a team are all enjoying and benefiting from the things that you've done around the site. So thank you. We're going to hear from Nigel Kosh now, the Senior Landscape Officer at Herefordshire Council. Thank you, Nigel. I'll hand over to you.
Great, thank you. I'm here on behalf of the Climate and Nature Network Group, one of 8 employee network groups supported by the Council to voice and to initiate positive change in the workplace. Today I'll be taking you through a staff-led process to promote nature at work. Next slide. Thanks, Tina. Before I do, I would like to refer to Banksy's recent piece in Islington. I show this image as it represents an odd biophilic perception between the unnatural and natural, like artificial plants in an office. I recently attended an event in Birmingham at a corporate office that had very realistic artificial plants, and that at first impression really fooled me. I said to one of the employees, "You have an impressive office," and they responded, "I do apologise for the fake plants. They should be natural." So what I'm getting at here is that we seek something deeper than aesthetics, and this is the vision for our place of work. Next slide. Thank you. So this is the start of the process of this our staff-led process. So during the Greener Footprints Week last year, the Climate and Nature Group set up outside the staff entrance to engage with colleagues as they arrived into the workplace. We set aside a small patch of grass during No Mow May to highlight the comparison between manicured grass compared to the wild overgrown grass. And we did actually some interesting little studies of that. We also conducted a survey to gain evidence of people's feelings about nature and their workplace. Tina? The survey results expressed that the outdoor environment of the workplace did have an impact on well-being. And in this case, unfortunately, mostly a negative experience. Next slide. The survey went on to ask for positive green opportunities that could improve their place of work. And this is where we got some great responses, all very positive and useful, probably what you would anticipate actually, but it was great to start this process. Next slide. Our vision formula was to create a number of small manageable projects to create mini environments to demonstrate climate change, adaptation, and biodiversity enhancement. We took the ideas and then added our deeper messages, such as how to reduce the heat island effect, use suds to reduce flooding, plant wildlife flowers for biodiversity, and reduce carbon footprint. And the idea was to use information boards so that we could start to educate the staff and the community about this deeper meaning. We undertook site opportunities to ask, what ifs and whys. What if we planted on the wall? Pots could go there. Why isn't that area planted? That's a sunny spot. Perhaps a bench should go there, and that's where we can plant the wildflowers. Mixed with our ideas and messages with the aim to improve our workplace well-being, demonstrate nature and climate change action, and improve business. Tina? A diagram was produced to communicate the mini environments, and this is really important because this is where we could start to get this message across of, we can do this here, and we looked at a potential area for a brown roof. Perhaps we could put pots at one of the entrances that link to the cafe, etc. So this was just a graphic and first look at where we would put our mini projects, and then we took this plan, we developed it. Then we got it costed, and then we did a management plan. This is really important stuff to do to get the support that we needed. Next slide. So this is the evidence and information to gain support and produce a business case. The process of working together is critical. Generating the ideas, making it happen, speaking to management, the maintenance team, fellow colleagues to get them involved and allow them to come up with their own ideas. All things to build up motivation so it succeeds. It is looked after and evolves. The benefit of creating mini environments or projects is that it can evolve with the availability of time, cost, and resource, and then ultimately achieve positive business and work well-being with nature and climate benefit. Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Nigel. That was really interesting, and I love that term biophilia. Actually, it kind of resonates. I'm sure it does with quite a few of us. That feeling that you get when you've been around nature. So we've just got a few resources here They look at both the sort of landscape scale, but also internal organisation actions that you can take. So once these slides get circulated, then please do take your time to read through, because there's some really great content, and it really just reiterates the messages that we've been talking about, and gives you some really tangible examples of what businesses can do, both on the small scale and on the larger scale. We'll move on now, Tina, thank you, to just any questions anybody might have. If you do, just have a little look in the chat to see if there's been anything asked, or if not, then please do raise your hand if you have any questions for any of our speakers. If not, then straight away, I've got a question for you, Katie. It sounds like there's a combination of both the sort of top down, but also the staff team's enthusiasms really brought these projects to life. Can you talk a little bit about how you've sort of navigated your own intentions and aspirations for seeing things done, with maybe some of the difficulty with, if there has been any, with getting them done?
Yeah, I think we are, actually, I say that we're very lucky, but I'm assuming that most people have this opinion that we're all very aware that we are now at the stage where we drastically need to be making changes. So we are lucky that we do have a team of people who are really interested in making a difference and want to make an impact, whether that is encouraging wildlife or perhaps just improving well-being at work, and all doing what we can to make it a lovely, beautiful place to work. So I think a couple of years ago we started having team meetings, just come along, share your ideas, what would you like to do, how can we help you, which is how the bird feeder came around. And I think the only obstacles we've really faced is the practicalities. I think you can start having all these wonderful ideas, and when it comes to fruition, it can take a while. I think the water butt is a perfect example, because I thought, out of everything we've done, putting in a water butt is going to be the easiest thing that we do, and then you go to measure it and it just sometimes works out that way, that things are the wrong size, or perhaps it's not the right weather, or perhaps you haven't quite got the labour there. So I think it's just about being persistent and seeing obstacles as opportunities. What can we do next, and how can we get around it? So yeah, I think the support of the team has been wonderful, and we couldn't really ask for anything better. So yes.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like a really good combination of enthusiastic souls. So
Yeah.
it's a great example and really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions for any of our speakers at this moment?
I've got a question for Katie, which is actually to say, I guess you're doing what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I probably haven't gone through some of the complexities of trying to do what we are trying to do, and that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of, has there been sort of any resistance, I guess, or sort of odd things? Like we had some odd things where, or you can't plant apples because it's going to bring the insects, or you can't do that because it's going to bring the vermin. It's
Yeah. I think maybe we're just lucky, because the attitude of the staff, and actually our neighbours as well, is it's going to bring insects. That's great. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of adjusting people's perspective on things, I think, because biodiversity means a range of things. It's not just about having bunnies and butterflies, and there needs to be a range there. So I think, to be honest with you, we are just passionate and lucky to have such a supportive team. I think that's what it comes down to be honest. And being willing to just go and do things yourself, I think that's part of it. Just doing it, just planting a couple of trees every year, and yeah, yes, that's it really.
Jamie, off the back of that question, sorry, thank you so much, Katie. Off the back of Nigel's question there, Jamie, do you have any suggestions for maybe breaking down those misconceptions, or the challenge of cross-department working that might larger organisations might come across?
Yeah, well, look, I think first of all, there's huge positives, aren't there, rather than worrying about the negatives of well-being, of great space, of space for lunch. So I think, go for the I kind of say this about any change process, I guess, go for the quick wins, the low-hanging things, the things that people can't feel calm and confident about. Like on the facts, I think, we need to remind people that, insects, highly positive. We could make that most people, I would think would probably feel confident by and large with bees and that being a positive thing, as opposed to something more scary. In terms of cross silo working, then yeah, I mean, I think, what's the self-interest of other departments in terms of, people access, in terms of reputation. And then I think there's just the confidence to kind of assert that, nature, has to be allowed to get on with it.
Thank you. Yeah, brilliant answer. Thank you. Any other questions? We are now sort of at our time. So
I've just got a quick question. Is that okay?
Of course, yeah, go for it.
Thanks, Rosie. It's really for Katie. We've got a similar space, Katie, to what you were showing at Orphans at ETL. So I'd be quite interested in seeing kind of the kind of things you've done. I work quite closely with our facilities manager here, and this is something that we've got a few meetings on. So it'd be really interesting to see kind of practically how you implemented what you've done. As I say, we've got a similar space, and again, the pond is something that kind of we've had previous discussions on, but it hasn't really got off the ground. So any collaboration there would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, our door is always open. So send me an email and you can come over and see what we do. I'd love to show you
That'd
around.
Be super.
So
brilliant. Thank you so much.
Please do.
For all the presentations are really inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dean, I think we have just one more slide just to sort of end on. Please. It's just an encouragement, really. If there is anybody that hasn't already signed up to the Greener Footprints Business Network, then do so, and we'll be able to send you news of any events on the next sandwich session directly into your inbox. But unless there's any final questions, we'll stop recording. Thank you, Tina, and end the session there. Thank you so much again to Nigel, Katie, and